All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA. Perhaps because I was born in the middle of a frigid Minnesota winter, that the call of California came upon me so strongly. During my childhood in the 60s, America was ruled by 3 national television stations that went off the airwaves each day at midnight, and the static-filled monotony of AM radio. Because of this, certainly in 1967 at age 5, I knew all the lyrics to the Mama and the Papa's song California Dreaming by heart, as I anxiously awaited for the cold chill to dissipate so I could escape on a family trip to the magical land of California. The Brady Bunch, The Doris Day Show, Courtship of Eddie's Father, Dragnet, and countless TV shows hadn't arrived on the scene yet, so they gave me no idea of what California would be like. In fact, most TV shows were still set in New York City, like That Girl, Family Affair, and of course, The Ed Sullivan Show. Being so young, I was completely unaware of the turbulent decade of international tensions, cultural upheaval, and the generation gap. Summer of Love meant nothing more to me than a field of people holding hands, singing that they'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony while drinking Coca-Cola. None of these things mattered. There was only one thing on my mind that spring. While Santa's magic had begun to fade for me, it was replaced by something much bigger. The enchantment of the Magic Kingdom itself, Disneyland. I hardly ever missed an episode of Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. Yes, World of Color. Sounds a bit strange to say these days, but it was still groundbreaking for television shows to be aired in living color at that time. So, dreaming of Mickey and Pluto for months on end, every day of the trip I wondered, are we there yet? My dad, with his faithful 8mm camera on hand, recorded our visit to Wall Drug, the Black Hills, Mount Rushmore, the Continental Divide, Old Faithful, the Redwood National Forest, the city of San Francisco, and the dirty streets of Hollywood. At that time of my life, summer vacation from school felt like an eternity, and so was each day of that trip, excruciating long, and as one day closer to the heart of the trip. Finally, the day arrived. Dressed in striped orange and yellow t-shirt to match my big brother, I found myself lost in a sea of people waiting at the gates of Disneyland. Just beyond those massive turnstiles, the enchanted castle and all my childhood fantasies awaited. With a day-long packet of A to E ration tickets in hand, and hopeful that we'd get the chance to use them all, we slowly moved through the crowd. At every turn, a sugar rush fantasy exploded in my mind that still presents itself as a kaleidoscopic flashback some 40 years later. Disneyland was one of a kind back then. No other park existed anywhere on the world like it. Each section of the park had its own theme. Main Street, Fantasyland, New Orleans Square, to name a few. Tomorrowland had just reopened after being redesigned. The People Movers were brand new, and the ride was filled with surprises as I found myself traveling through a telescope and shrinking to the size of an atom. Next door, General Electric's Carousel of Progress took theater in the round to a new level as the seats of the theater moved around the center stage, with stories told by somewhat eerie animatronic people. From there, the rest of the park. Flying saucers overhead, submarines underwater, the wishing well, great moments with Mr. Lincoln, and flying through the air inside Dumbo. How do I describe floating on a raft through a gigantic whale's gaping mouth, open, only to find myself spit out on the other side like Pinocchio, to see the floral patchwork villages and exotic bushes shaped like animals. Everywhere I turned, there was another one of my best friends, Mickey, Goofy, Dopey. I couldn't figure out why they ignored me most of the time. I was so small they practically bowled me over more than once. Now I understand that there was little chance that the person hiding inside could hear or see me, but then it was perplexing. There, in the middle of it all, disaster shook my world. My big fantasies dashed when I realized I couldn't drive on the Autobahn. To the delight of my brother, I was 2 inches too short for the E-Ride tickets. E-Rides were the best rides. I don't remember if I cried, but I remember not being happy about it. Well, after watching my dad and my brother zip around in the cars on the futuristic highway, all was set right when I got to be in charge as the driver on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. At the time, I had no idea that the cowboys and Indians on Tom Sawyer Island were reinforcing cultural stereotypes, or that the sexist pirates were equally interested in raping as they were pillaging. In fact, I'm sure I went to sleep rightfully brainwashed that night with you-hoo, a pirate's life for me, stuck in my head. And dead men tell no tales, gak, gak, gak. As we wound our way through the day and the eventual appearance of Tinker Bell in the night sky, we found ourselves once again mesmerized by the towering clockworks of It's a Small World exhibit. How fortunate to be exposed to the mind-numbing song that's a part of the pretty much brand spanking new event, all at 5 years old. I think I've spent years in therapy with that song stuck in my head. But at the time, it was just another magical moment, an awe-inspiring boat ride through a colorful fantasy of international cultures. Summer of love indeed, an adventure that filled my youthful mind for years to come, and certainly something to reflect upon when I returned to Minnesota, and in the fall I saw all the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA.